Hello people, James Arburn here, and it's around midnight, and unfortunately that's when I seem to be quite active. I am a night owl, as some people say, or night butterfly. Do you also find yourself sitting around in the middle of the night, wondering what to do? Or maybe that's just me. Either way. So recently, my friend David Hammer and I, we went for another joy flight at the Donnington Airpark military muster. As you can see, there's when I flew the Nanchang. Over there is where I flew the Texan. And more recently, we flew in the Windjiel. And of course, we stayed at the markets as well. And there were quite a few things that we picked up, like military memorabilia, books from the 2RAR collection, and even books from, more military surplus stuff. And I didn't get the name of the people in that tent, but thank you so much for giving us this, because you provided me with some interesting book reading material, like this one.
So yeah, one thing that's immediately noticeable is that this book is exactly what it says on the cover. Notes for Task Force Commands and Pacific Theaters, courtesy of the United States of America War Office and the War Department.
I got this for $10, which is a bit of a steal because, you've seen a lot of memorabilia sell on eBay, like those cards from the Iraq War. So what do we see when I peel this $10 sticker off? More black ink. Whatever's under here is lost to history.
I've always said that the little things inside the book, like stickers for example, tell a bit of a story. Well, so this book used to be classified or restricted material. It's also seen its fair share of wear and tear. One thing that is immediately noticeable in the table of contents is that the book goes into detail about the characteristics of the Imperial Japanese Army, and there's parts of it that are still covered in black ink. From what I can see here, the closest estimation of the redacted text is Army General Headquarters.
Jeez, should I be reading this stuff?
FBI, open up!
So after having a squiz at this, and an even deeper look while editing, so this is basically a manual on how to battle the Imperial Japanese Army. Now, a big disclaimer, this book does contain words that were used a lot back then for the Japanese, but not now, for obvious reasons. The war is over.
The first thing that greets us on Chapter 1 is a message to all the readers who are about to face the Japanese in World War II, that they will be encountered in varying types of terrain and climate. Up to the present, the bulk of the encounters with them have occurred in humid jungle or semi-jungle country, but it is most anticipated that operations may also be conducted in more open ground in China, on coral atolls, or in the bare tundra, forests, and snow of Alaska. The unusual conditions of terrain and climate in the Pacific theaters and characteristics of the Japanese psychology and military methods will require a specific adaptation of logistics, tactics, training, and equipment to exploit fully the fighting ability of Allied task forces. For example, in the Southwest Pacific Islands, Indochina, now known as Indonesia, Thailand, and southern Burma, now Myanmar, the terrain is jungle or semi-jungle with occasional open areas. Conditions of the jungle terrain in the Southwest Pacific vary so greatly from forested mountainous areas to swamp areas that it can be said that there is no such thing as typical jungle country. And so the American Marines would learn this the hard way. From Tarawa to Guadalcanal to Saipan, and the list goes on. What I find interesting with China and its mainland varying from mountainous to low, flat delta country gridded with numerous small streams is mentioned in this novel. So, the US was clearly expecting the China-Burma-India theater to expand. But here's where things get interesting. Alaska and the Aleutian Islands. In the open, rugged, and cold country of Alaska, the terrain favors the defense, and it did. Good fields of fire exist, and observational fire adjustment of artillery and small arms is excellent. Fog will occasionally limit vision to a few yards. Yes, indeed. There is that one base where there's only clear for a few days a year. The long daylight hours, particularly during the weather most favorable for operations and scarcity of cover, will not permit the attacker to move secretly against an alert defender. This will be particularly true of the Aleutian chain. There are a few roads and trails through the wooded portions which are traversable by foot and sleds. In the summer, however, much of this ground becomes so boggy that it is nearly impassable, except by special means. Numerous streams, swamps, moraines, and glaciers obstruct movement at all times. Except for fish, game, and timber, few local resources are available to an invader. The variable weather conditions in the Aleutians, with low-hanging clouds and numerous fronts, make air operations difficult. The terrain presents a special problem to ground forces. Forces of all types will require considerable adaptation and training for this theater to make them fully effective.
While looking at footage to go along with this narration, I also realized that what I mentioned about the Aleutian Islands also worked against the Americans as well. They had to land on Attu, attack well-prepared Japanese positions, encircle the Japanese, who then fought on to the bitter end. Casualties were high on both sides. By the way, my good friend James Rassone is currently writing a story about a potential Chinese and Russian invasion of the Aleutian Islands right this minute. Do check that out.
Operations in the Pacific Theater will be characterized by great speed of action, difficulty of communications, extremes of heat and cold, and by much fifth column activity. It can be expected that the enemy tactics will be aggressive on the land and in the air. He will employ deceptive measures. His tactical operations will be conducted with great speed, coupled with infiltration attacks in rear areas. He will make all-out attacks against superior forces, though such attacks offer little promise of success. Organized enemy subversive elements operating among the unstable local populations will incite discontent, non-cooperation, sabotage, and at times open rebellion. Such a combination of hostile military and political attack must be met through integration of the Allies' own military operations with the activity of the local civil government. But here's where things get more darker. Military psychology. The foundation stones of the Japanese military system are seishin, which may be roughly translated as morale or military spirit, and physical fitness. These two qualities have been emphasized since the organization of the modern Japanese Army, and their importance has constantly grown rather than diminished in the ensuing years. Seishin is responsible for the offensive spirit with which the Japanese Army is so strongly imbued. Westerners have been inclined to discount its value in view of the highly mechanized nature of modern warfare, but it has done much to compensate for whatever the Japanese lack in technical equipment, and it has created a bold, aggressive attitude which has proved itself in the battles of the current war. Seishin training, conducted each week by all company and similar unit commanders, takes the form of lectures on the glories of Japan's military history, talks on Japan's divine missions in Asia, and the constant emphasis on the superiority of the Japanese soldier over all others. The program invariably stresses the advantage of attack over defense, and keeps constantly in mind the stigma which attaches to any Japanese who falls in the hands of the enemy. Then there's the conditioning. No attempt is made to ease the civilian into military life. There is no coddling, either mental or physical. The pay in the army is negligible, the food simple, the life hard. The only reward held out is victory over Japan's enemies and the glory of serving the emperor.
So this was printed in 1943, when the Pacific War was raging for some time and will continue to rage for some time.
The entire Japanese military system is devoted to the ideal of developing physically hard, mentally tough, aggressive fighters filled with determination to close with the enemy and prove their superiority in physical combat. However, aggressive leadership and tactics carried out with unusual success in all their wars have built up an exterior shell of confidence, which is very effective so long as Japanese troops are not on the offensive. Their entire system of warfare is based on seizing and retaining the initiative, and experience has shown that they are willing to gamble and take long chances to accomplish such ends. The US and their allies, in return, made every effort to destroy the basis of their morale. The weapons, both in quality and quantity, of the Japanese and their marksmanship were inferior to the Allies. As for training, the Japanese had a huge emphasis on field exercises, camouflage, infiltration, combat training for all personnel, jungle fighting, night operations, landing operations, and use of enemy weapons and material. Oh yes, the Ordnance Department conducts schools for officers and men of artillery, infantry, engineer, and tank units to familiarize the maximum number possible with the weapons and vehicles used by the corresponding branches in the armies of China, Great Britain, and the United States. Certain personnel were even capable of making minor repairs to enemy equipment. Instructions by the High Command direct that captured material be displaced forward rather than evacuated to the rear. In terms of operations, the Japanese landing operations were invariably preceded by air reconnaissance well in advance. They also employ all available means of transportation to move troops along railways, highways, and through the jungle and water areas, utilizing to the fullest extent civilian and enemy vehicles as they are captured. There is no waiting for information to filter to the rear. Commanders and staff officers who indicate that they are unfamiliar with what is going on in their own front are summarily relieved. Printed in red at the head of every chapter of the staff officers' field manuals is the following terse paragraph. Commanders and staff officers who do not receive prompt information will go to the front and get it. No officer of the Imperial Army is so valuable that he cannot be replaced if he becomes a casualty. The Japanese advance on a broad front, making use of all available routes of approach, including roads, rivers, and the sea. The doctrine also calls for the use of infiltration methods in all types of terrain. Artillery is kept well forward at all times, whether on the march or in action. Night operations are characterized by stealth and a sudden attack with knives or bayonets. Excellent coordination exists between ground and air forces during the forward movement of the infantry. The Japanese also used deceptive measures extensively, from native disguises, use of enemy uniforms and helmets, and use of civilian cars to rush bridges prepared for demolition. But it's in defense that this becomes interesting. In the past, every effort has been made to instill in the minds of officers and men that the idea for the Japanese troops to act in any way except defensively, unless faced by overwhelming forces and ordered to do so by higher authority, would be unworthy of the spirit of Japan. But apparently in the realization that the role of Japan's troops in many of the areas in which they are now stationed must of necessity become a defensive one, the authorities are stressing defensive tactics to a greater extent than before. We could go on all night, but basically, this deep into the war, the Americans have gained a clear picture on how the Japanese operated, and that gained them an edge in the campaigns ahead. However, looking at Appendix 1, extracts of captured Japanese documents, which I'm currently reading through a captured, by that I mean purchased obviously, American document. Land warfare to use against the US and British forces. The Japanese also had an idea of how the Allies operated. Appendix 2 was common mistakes in operations. Destruction of bridges before friendly troops had withdrawn, shooting down friendly aviation by own anti-aircraft, failure in delivery of important messages due to complicated signal communication, and so on, have been occurred so repeatedly in recent operations in the Southwest Pacific, even in good commands, that it was imperative that commanders and staffs take note of them and check to see that they do not occur within their units. Appendix 3 was hint for the soldiers in the jungle, ranging from learning to move at night as readily as by day, practicing snap shooting, always giving the trigger a quick squeeze, learn what fruits, insects and animals and shrubs are edible, which vines will give you water. Some Japanese would play dead, then throw grenades and shoot Americans in the back. Allied soldiers were also told not to answer their name when called at night, and to not expect aid stations won't be bombed because of a Red Cross flag. The Japanese are out to kill all enemies, sick or well. And Appendix 4 was a training guide for unit commanders, and Appendix 5 was illustrations. which are illustrations and maps about how the Japanese operated, both on the ground and in the sea, with a bit of an emphasis of amphibious warfare.
Well, that will have to do it for this video. Thank you so much for humoring me for this amount of time, for this unconventional book review. I recommend it. Yeah, it's an interesting read. Or you could use it as study material for an actual read. But I am an unconventional man. I mean, would you rather I did a book review on that visual flight guide? Or that bunch of paper detailing every single rural runway? Because that does fascinate me. And this fascinates me too. And I like to make videos on things that fascinate me. And I hope that they fascinate people out there as well. And don't worry about me. If something like this does come up, I know how to operate an M2 Browning machine gun, at least in theory, because of this book, which I also got from the same people. Close range weapons, maintaining a 0.5 inch Browning machine gun. And then there's this one, a typewritten history book about the Burma campaign from 1941 to 1945. An account based on Lord Sim's defeat into victory, with additional material from various sources compiled by Lieutenant Colonel J.H. Moore. From 1975, HQ Training Command, Sydney, New South Wales. But that will have to be a story for another time. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more. Go check out my website, sign up to the mailing list, and maybe check out my blogs, and stay curious. Good night.